Hello, experimentalist. This is Wade. We're here today with a person that I know by the name of SB, but I believe her official name is Sarah Beth Hester. Thank you so much for doing this for us, Sarah.
Thanks for having me. Glad to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
here.
Awesome. So one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on here was because of your affiliation with Synchronicity and going through their program called Straight Bear. But before we get to that, I want, for selfish reasons, to know a little bit more about you, even though we worked with each other recently in The Imaginary Invalid. I don't really know a whole lot about you. So, how did your journey into puppetry start?
Uh, so I've always been involved in music and theater. Both of my parents were musicians, so I was very much cultivated in the arts from an early age and knew that my career would go somehow in that direction, as much as my parents told me maybe don't. But I ended up going to school and getting my degree in musical theater. And by the time I finished my 5 year degree, I decided that I did not want to do musical theater for the rest of my life. Um, and I was like, oh, great. Well, now I have this degree, and what do I do with it? But from there, I got involved with the Atlanta Shakespeare Company. I did the Apprentice Company the year after I graduated, and then just kind of started exploring the city. I fell back in love with Atlanta. I'm from around here, so I never traveled far, but I always kind of thought I would go out to LA or go to New York or go to Chicago or something. And I found I don't like the cold, so New York was
Hmm.
out. New York,
Yeah.
Chicago were out. And then my brother was out in LA and he was like, "It's hard out here." And I'm like, I'm kind of having a good time in Atlanta. There's a lot of new things popping up. This was about 10 years ago when I graduated. And so I kind of fell in love with the city, started exploring it, found the Center for Puppetry Arts. And for some reason, like puppetry had never clicked in my mind as like a feasible career path to follow. I had always loved puppets. That was like my big form of play between me and my dad. We would always like manipulate my little stuffed animals and stuff. But for some reason, like as much as I was in the arts, I just wasn't on my radar. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I auditioned with the Center for Puppetry Arts and got involved with Rudolph, and that just kind of like made everything start coming together. It clicked for me. I really loved being a part of it. And like, if anyone knows anything about the Rudolph and how intense of like a production that is, to come through and still love puppetry, is like great. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, from that, I just fell in love with the art form and started studying it as much as I could. Went to the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center for the National Puppetry Conference a couple times, and just wanted to soak up as much puppetry as I could, because I just freaking love it. I think it's cool.
Well, before you get too far ahead of us, let's go back to your time at the center doing Rudolph,
Yeah.
because so that was your first actual production being a puppeteer.
Yes, it was my first professional venture into puppetry. I was cast as Clarice, Rudolph's girlfriend.
Mhm.
Back in I think it was 2016 was my first year doing Rudolph. And it's a 3 month contract. The great thing about CPA is they look for people that they feel like they can train, and they're very, very generous in their training and knowledge when you come in with the willing soul to learn it.
Yeah.
So I came in and we had several new people that year that I joined the cast, and we all just you just kind of get thrown in. It's rod style puppets, hand and rod, on the little butt carts moving around, and you rehearse it for a month and then perform it for 2 months.
Yeah, and how intense is that? Because the correct me if I'm wrong, that's uh 2 shows during the week and then 3 shows on the weekend, or did that change when you got
Yeah,
in there?
it varies, but it's between 2 to 3 shows a day, Tuesdays through Sundays. And rehearsals are Tuesdays through Sundays as well. Um, but it's nice because like once you get into performances, it's all in the daytime because the kids
Yeah,
shows are in the morning. Though
right.
uh I my the draw to theater that I loved is that I never had to get up early because I am not a morning person. And then I started doing children's puppetry, and I have to be at the center at 9 a.m. Well, what can you do?
Right. Wow. Okay. So, you're a bit younger than I am, but I can only imagine the toll that that takes on your body, to be doing those puppets, so many times during the day, and they can be quite heavy at times as well, especially if you're holding them above your head. Did you find any new aches and pains going through that whole process of Rudolph?
Yes. um we Yes, it is very taxing, just like any kind of like sport or physical venture. It is so important to do your warm-ups every day. You can't skip no matter what you're feeling like. You got to stretch out, warm up, voice and body. Because like one thing that's different with puppetry, and Rudolph specifically, we're mimicking all of the voices from the claymation, the stop motion animation. And when you're in voice lessons and everything, they teach you all the proper posture. You're standing up, you're like having being able to get these nice full deep breaths. But then when you get into like Rudolph, you're on these carts and you're up under the playboard with the puppets under you, and often like your neck is like twisted like this, and you're still having to find a way to produce those sounds that you were taught the proper form for in all of your training. So that's kind of a fun thing to relearn how to breathe and project without hurting yourself, because if like with a run as long as Rudolph, like if you lose your voice, you don't have time to recover.
Yeah.
And it's just like long term, it's not sustainable. You have to protect yourself, protect your body. And then from that is the aftercare. After the shows, you got to stretch out, do your like cool down exercises. You'll see me in the November, December months just with like ice packs taped to me, because like that they always say it's like the back and forth between hot and cold therapy. It works.
Yeah.
And the days that I don't ice or don't heat my back, I feel it the next day. And those 3 shows are the hardest things to get those puppets over your head.
Wow, yeah. And learning, it's different than learning an accent for a play you're going to be doing, because the audience is expecting that voice that they know from their original claymation to be up there on stage. Was that difficult for you to get the Clarice voice?
Um, I found Clarice kind of easily, just me, because I mean, like I was trained very classically in music and musical theater, and she's just very like very soft and very sweet and very genuine. What was fun is transitioning from Clarice, because now I'm in the Rudolph track,
Uh,
is finding that voice,
uh,
which I my earlier years of puppetry would have been a lot more difficult, but as I've matured and aged, the deepness has fallen more into my voice.
yeah.
And with all the metal up in my nose, getting that nasally ping to Rudolph's voice is fun. But one thing that we do with these voices is we look for the heart of the character. People will swear that we have like a one-to-one replica with
Yeah.
that show, but
Yep.
if you actually like go back and look at it, we found the magic of the show, and I think enhanced that through our years of development and having just an awesome team behind us, constantly growing it, because otherwise like it would get stale and we wouldn't want to do it for 10 years in a row.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's now jump over to the O'Neill conference. When you were originally going there, were you just going to learn more about puppeteering and improving your skills and being a puppeteer, or did you kind of go into learning how to build at this point?
My my first year was 2019, so right before the shutdown. I was big starry-eyed. I had just come off of shooting for like a year and a half, 2 years on a TV show that was tiny little puppets. And at that point, I knew it was like, I want to be a puppeteer. And so just through research, I found the O'Neill and applied, and yes, mostly focused on expanding my puppetry and manipulation, but also wanting to broaden my view of the art itself, because that was like really when my career was shifting into like puppetry all day, all the time. I wasn't quite at the fabricating level then as I am now, but it was definitely on the radar of things.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about the TV show that you're on? I didn't know about this.
Yeah. So I was on Moon and Me. It was a BBC co-production, the CBBS with Bento Box. And we shot down in what was then Pinewood. Now I think it's the Trilith Studios down in Fairburn area.
Okay.
But that was where I like uh really got to know a bunch of people at the center and a bunch of people in the Atlanta puppetry scene. Like Jason Hines, I adopted him as my mentor, whether he likes it or not. Raymond Carr, just like all of these people in the industry in the city. Um, uh, we were in a warehouse playing with tiny little puppets, like 8 hours in a day
Yeah,
for
yeah. Oh
weeks
my
on end.
gosh. How was that experience different from doing all those hours with the Center of Puppetry Arts and with Rudolph and stuff like that? That's about an 8 hour day too. Were you able to, I guess from your experience with Rudolph, you're kind of like, okay, I know how to take care of my body now and able to get through an 8 hour day of shooting, or was it completely different?
it, what I have found is every type of puppetry is different, and you'll find new ways to make your body ache the next day. Because, well, like when you're focused on like infusing all of your energy into the puppet itself, you forget to check in with your body, and that's one thing. When I'm like teaching new puppeteers, is like always check in with your body. Like don't neglect yourself, because that is your tool to move the puppet.
Yeah.
um but so the difference between like Rudolph, it was all rod puppets. Both sets were rod puppets. Rudolph, you're under the puppet and the puppets are much heavier. Moon and Me, these were our biggest character was 10 inches tall and our smallest character was an inch and a half maybe. And they had rods like over them, almost like a marionette.
Mm,
Um, uh, Kind of, I don't know, it was strange. But with those, all the puppets were multiple puppeteer driven.
okay.
So you would need it was very rare that only one puppeteer would be on a puppet at a time, because they were doing all these like intricate moves. They're quite cute, I think.
Oh, nice, nice. Is there any way that people can see that? Is it on any kind of streaming service or
Uh,
anything like that, you know?
so it is on Universal Kids. So I think you have to have a cable subscription. Sometimes it shows up on YouTube, but they usually pull those off pretty quickly. But
Gotcha.
I think there's still a couple episodes floating around YouTube.
Okay, all right. Um, let's get into your show that you did recently, that you actually wrote and directed. Mad Hatter Pillar.
Yes, the Mad
So,
Caterpillar and her
what
mini
came
heads.
first, the chicken or the egg? So, did you find out about the Synchronicity sponsored incubation theater type thing with Strip Bear, or did you already start working on this idea for the Mad Caterpillar before that?
So the idea was already there. My friend Rachel Frawley and I developed the piece together. She actually wrote all of the book and lyrics, and I wrote and composed all of the music and the puppets for the show. And then we were creative partners putting it all together, bouncing ideas off. But it was an idea that came out during the shutdown. When we had nothing better to do but find random things and research them. And she draws a lot of her inspiration from the grotesque nature and like what is in the world around us, and found this species of caterpillar that is native to Australia and New Zealand, called its street name is the Mad Caterpillar. It molts several times before it gets its wings, and each time it molts, it stacks its old head on top of it, and it uses it as it's a real caterpillar. It uses it as a defense mechanism, and like as like a hammer, or like to pretend it's a snake and stuff. It's wild. And so Rachel's like, there's definitely a story here, something to do with like coming of age. You have to deal with all of these voices in your head, things like that. And I'm like, well, it's got to be puppets. Obviously, it has to be puppets. And so we started, she started writing some of the scenes, and I started writing some of the songs. And then as things started opening up again, everything disappeared, went away. We forgot about it. But then I was back in Connecticut for the National Puppetry Conference. And one night I was just like chatting with people there. There's a lot of time to like just talk with all of the puppeteers there. And I was like, yeah, I had this idea with my friend, this puppet musical and blah, blah, blah. And started singing some of the songs, and they're like, you need to work on this now. And I was like, you know what? We don't need, this is a good idea. People are very interested in this crazy little caterpillar. So
Yeah.
I texted Rachel that night. It was like super late. We had been
I'm sorry, and
uh,
this is Rachel May with Synchronicity
no,
Theater.
this is Rachel Frawley.
Oh, Frog. Okay, gotcha.
She is now the artistic director of Piccadilly Puppets.
Okay.
One of my longtime good friends, we met at the Shakespeare Tavern, and like have had several ideas that have never really gone anywhere because we just get busy with having to make money to live in our society. Um, but yeah, so I texted her, and she's like, you know what? Yeah, we need to. This was a good idea, and she saw the listing for Synchro that the submissions were closing that week, and she's like, are we doing this? And I'm like, I think we are. So we like submitted a pitch the next day. I'm like in Connecticut on the phone with her at this conference being like, okay, this is what we need to do. And she submitted it, and we got it. And that
Wow.
was exciting.
Was it a full script that you submitted with some songs, or was it a piece of the script with some songs, or how did you do this?
We
And one of the reasons why I think this is important to kind of go through this whole process you went through is because I'm always looking for other ways that people who are interested in XPT, who are either doing it this year or who maybe didn't make it in this year, showing them other opportunities that they have in Atlanta. And obviously, I think this is a good one. And then the applications close on May 13th. So there's still time if anyone's interested. Please continue.
Yeah. So we did not have a full script. We did not have a full score. The thing with so you submit your idea and what you plan to do in the developmental period and what you plan to show. Obviously, things change. You have to be flexible. But we had at that time, we actually had a lot more than we thought we did. But I think we submitted like one scene and like one of the songs that we had for the actual application. And then right when I got back from Connecticut, we had about 6 months to flesh out the script, flesh out the score, and build the puppets. So we just kind of like hit the ground running. It was like July through December, we were developing it, and then actually showed it at Synchro, used the time and the space in January. So pardon me.
No, no, sorry.
Um,
Can I
uh,
ask can I ask real fast? Sorry.
yeah.
That 6 months time period, was that just something you guys put on yourselves to make it up, or is that something that Synchronicity is asking of its people to do in between that time?
So they have however many projects they're going to do. I think they do like six.
Okay.
So they have the dates, the like slots for the calendar year in there.
Okay.
And once your pitch is selected, what we did, we had a meeting with everybody and kind of chose what dates we would prefer based on how far our development had gone.
Okay.
Because everybody who had a project were in different phases of development.
Okay.
Um, the whole idea with Stripped Bear is it's not a stage reading, it's more than a stage reading, but it's less than a full production. It's like um they want just like literally the stripped down version of your show. They want your show to be on its feet in some capacity. It doesn't always necessarily even have to be a full script.
Mm.
If by the time your presentation comes around, it's just scenes and you talk about like what the next step is. And they help you kind of figure that out too. There are a couple like sit down like Zoom meetings that you'll have, um, and they help cultivate the process along the way. It's important to kind of know where you want to go with the project, and have achievable goals, but always have that like one more goal, that's like you have your achievable goals that you absolutely can deliver on, but don't limit yourself to that. I mean, with anything, like how else do you grow? See how
Yeah.
far you can go. Um,
So on these Zoom meetings that you have, um beyond that, are there moments where you have to meet up with anybody from Synchronicity to kind of show them where you're at? Do you get any kind of feedback of performance wise, kind of where you're at or anything like that in the
no,
process? No?
no, a lot of it is really like hands off, more hands on from your side of things, at least in my experience.
Hmm.
um uh I will say Rachel Frowley did take a lot of the like actual communication, because there were deadlines as far as like having the cast and like the cast bios, because they do a lot with marketing, which is great. So like having like some kind of logo or picture you want to be associated with your project, deadlines as far as that goes, and deadlines as far as knowing who's going to be performing and like having all their bios so that we can promote and market and things like that. But otherwise, it's having someone gracious with a big open space that you can rehearse in. We we ended up putting our show together in like 2 weeks rehearsing in Rachel's living room, and then moved into the space. We decided you can choose how you use the 3 days in your space, but what we chose is to have like one tech day where we moved everything in, uh, like did a tech through walkthrough, learned the space as compared to what we were working with, and then use the other 2 days to actually perform the show, because we really wanted people to see what we had been doing. Um, they don't require you to do that. You can use all 3 days to like work and stage and do whatever like that. They do expect at least one public performance or showcase. Uh, but we took advantage. You can have up to three. We wanted to have up to three.
Okay. Yeah.
Get as many people there as we could to
Yeah, it's
see it.
fantastic because that way you get a lot more feedback from
Yeah.
what you've been working on, which is really nice.
And you
Uh,
have a talk back after each public performance as well.
Gotcha, gotcha. And that's at the Synchronicity workshop space. Is that where?
It's on their regular stage over on Spring Street,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right around the corner from the center.
Right, yeah, yeah. Okay, gotcha. Um, I saw that on their posting they say that you know, all artists are always looking for how much money they can get and stuff like that. And instead of
Uh-huh.
$1,000, is that something that everyone gets, or is it kind of on a sliding scale of what you think you might need, or how do they normally work that? Do you know?
Uh, in my understanding, if you get selected, then you get the stipend of $1,000, and
Okay.
you can use that however you choose.
Okay.
Uh, I we had very low tech needs, and need luckily our puppets are trash. That's how I build puppets, out of trash. So our like actual cost to do the stripped down version of the show was not much, and we ended up using most of our funds to pay our performers as much as we could. But you can choose to use that if you need it for materials or for this, that, and the other. Uh, yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone just gets the $1,000. This is actually my second time doing Strip Bear. I did it there the first year ever doing it.
Okay.
Wrote another musical with a friend, and that was before they gave money. So like when we booked it this last year, and they're like, "And here's your $1,000," and we're like, "Whoa, oh, I didn't expect that. That's nice."
Yeah, that's a really nice surprise. Well, not only because you've done it twice now, but because that Mad Hatterpillar actually went out and had its own life outside of the Synchronicity incubator. Obviously, it was a good experience. Can you talk about the transition from going from the Strip Bear and performance to going into, what was that, Decatur that you did the other
Uh,
performance?
so we started at Strip Bear, then we did another like workshop kind of performance over at Outfront,
Okay,
and then moved up to Dunwoody at Stage Door Theater for the world premiere of it.
gotcha.
Um uh so yeah, like the development from Synchronicity like really never stopped. Luckily, Jennifer Kimball is was like our point of contact at Synchronicity, and she was and is just still so amazing and so generous. Like every time there was an opportunity, she was like, "Hey, check this out. Maybe you can get this grant. Maybe you can get into this festival, that, and the other." And we were very fortunate and lucky to have a lot of people really like what we did. So ended up over at Outfront for like a two performance. I think we were there for like two weeks maybe doing that production of it, and then we had the full run up in Dunwoody. And like I said, having those achievable goals each phase, uh both Rachel and I had kind of our checklist of the things that we wanted to grow and expand from the time before, and how we were going to make it better, and how we were going to make our communication better, and just just try to fine tune like us as like a directing partnership, us as like a writing partnership, and how how this show could grow and be better and just get it out there.
Yeah.
So what Outfront afforded us is our first time playing with like a real set, and we had a little more time to let those characters sink in and grow. We got to expand the shadow puppetry a little bit there, and uh excuse me,
Nice.
started thinking about how we expand the script. Where it is right now, we started with like a 45-minute touring type version, and by the time we got to Dunwoody, we had like a more full length like hour 15-minute version of it. So we ended up like almost doubling what we had from the beginning.
Wow.
um so just looking at like what characters needed songs, do we add more characters, um and kind of just like throwing every idea we had out there to see if it worked and see what people liked, not being afraid.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, where are you now with Mad Hatterpillar? I heard the Dunwoody performances were a success, that you were selling out shows. So where do we go now?
uh I mean, Anyone who wants to give us money, we're ready to go. Um, uh, we right now we are waiting and talking to people, and like, I mean, obviously the dream would to be getting it in a place um dedicated to puppetry and
Yeah.
have their support and build, and maybe one day that can happen. If anyone's watching this,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Hope so.
PTA,
Yep.
we would love to be there. But right now, we definitely needed a break because we had been going at it for like a year and a half nonstop.
Yeah.
And so after Dunwoody closed, we're like, okay, we're gonna take a breath. And probably in May we'll start talking and scheming again. There have been like some flutters here, some flutters there, and it's like, okay, I know we need to strap back in and see what the next phase would be. But yeah, what we would like to have is some sort of published version of this. We have the full length and the touring version. We'd love to find out how it builds out more on a bigger stage in a more like immersive type set, and how it could also be developed into the trunk show that fits in the back of your car. So there's a bunch of different possibilities, and merch, 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 merch.
Yeah, for sure. When I met you, you were it's like you had two or three heads because you had the show going on in Dunwoody, which had been running for a little bit, but was still going on. So of course they're puppets, so you're going to have some broken puppets happening as the show's continuing on. Uh, you're building puppets now for Imaginary Invalid. Um, and I remember at the end of that show, Imaginary Invalid, that you were like, you know what? I think I'm just not going to be an artist for a little bit. I'm going to tend bar. So has that been true, or has someone else wrapped you into another show?
I have so I needed a break. My brain was hurting a bit. I've done some small things, but mostly I've been working on my garden at my house, even though it's very overgrown because I've had a sinus infection the last week and it's been raining, and now everything is just overgrown. But I have the first blackberry buds happening. I'm so excited. My
Wow, yeah.
blackberries. I was my first strawberry happening. So I did that. I've been at the bar a lot. I work at Public House 28 if you ever want to come by. That was the place. It's like I was about to quit, maybe not quit, but take time away to focus on my art. What was it, like March 1st of 2020? And then the shutdown happened, and I was like, hey, do you still need that general manager? And so a lot of the shutdown for me was spent like figuring out how to make a restaurant work when no one can come see you.
Yeah, yeah,
But
for
we're
sure.
still there. But that's kind of my home. I always go back there when I need a break from theater and
I
need
mean,
a
how
little.
important is that for an artist to have a place they can go back to? I mean,
It
that's huge. That's huge.
yeah, it's huge. And like my boss there is very generous in that way, and he knows that like I've done a lot for the bar, and when I am there, I make it worth him giving some shifts away from other people.
Yeah.
Uh but and it's fun. It's fun to have a different perspective on things. I feel like especially for artists, it's easy to get like stuck where you are, and that's when things get stale. Um but yeah, I go to the bar. I have a lot of fun and interesting regulars that have all of their crazy stories, and it's just like feeding the like improv nature in me of like, oh, this I'm gonna use this somewhere. You can't make this shit up.
Well,
Um,
Sarah Beth, thank you so much for your time. I know we're about to run out of time here with this video. I just want to reiterate again that Synchronicity Theater have their applications open for what they term as stripped bare. Applications in on May 13th, so still got some time, but it's coming up. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for your time. It's really been great to know a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your history, and thank you for your information on the whole process.
Yeah, yeah. Stripped Bear is amazing. I highly recommend it. They're very helpful there. And
Awesome.
thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll see you soon, I'm sure.